If you're an Evangelion fan, holy, you're eating. The amount of collaborations lately has been crazy, but actually seeing a collaboration with products that are high quality and that I can stand behind, that's pretty sick. In today's video, we're going over the entire Evangelion MelGeek collection, which is going to be the Asuka edition, which does include a 65% Hall effect keyboard with some crazy CNC machining, a super decent sound profile, a great WebDriver, and a mouse that you've already seen before, which is the Horus. And if you want to know all about these products and this collection, definitely make sure to stay tuned for this video. And if you're watching the video as it goes live, the collection has just released. So if you're going to pick something up, definitely check out the links down in the description below. And as a quick disclaimer, this video is sponsored by MelGeek. And although I'm allowed full freedom with my content, I will be calling this a showcase video instead of a review. But rest assured, my thoughts will be my own and I will stay as honest as I possibly can. To give you a quick breakdown, here are all the items in this official Evangelion collaboration. There's a mousepad, a mouse, and a keyboard for both the Asuka and the Rei edition. And for each edition, you can choose between either just the keyboard, the mousepad, and the mouse in a bundle, or just the keyboard and the mouse together. I really wish they would sell all things by themselves. Especially the Horus Rei edition looks absolutely sick, and I definitely think about buying that myself if I could. The Asuka edition mousepad is pretty basic, but pretty decent actually. The stitching is below surface, but as you can see, it is simply a die-subbed blank white mousepad, which does result in the surface being very smooth and not textured. The base reminds me a lot of those used on the Sawi mousepad lineup, which is sort of a synthetic rubber foam that is quite firm and also very consistent. In terms of the overall speed, I'd call this an actual control pad that has more dynamic friction than the Artisan Zero, but a tad less than the Type 99. The static friction is rather low and it's easy to get your mouse moving, but in general, it's definitely a control-oriented experience. And since I only have the Asuka edition here, here's what the Rei one looks like. For the Asuka edition mouse, it is a new take on their Horus that I've already reviewed up here in the top right corner, so definitely go check out that video if you want a full in-depth breakdown. I gave it quite the positive review, especially for it being their first mouse. They nailed almost everything, and since it's been about half a year since it was released, I was stoked to see that they actually listened to my feedback. One of my complaints was that if you turned the mouse off, the receiver would start blinking endlessly until the mouse reconnects, and it would drive me absolutely crazy at night. And that has now been fully fixed so that it only blinks for a few seconds. They also only had 2 LOD steps before, whereas they now have 3. And in general, the WebDriver is so much better now, even though it was already really decent before. Here's what the WebDriver looks like. You can simply click on your mouse. And if you're getting this yourself, I definitely recommend going into the settings and then doing the firmware upgrade immediately over here. You will have to do that for both the receiver and the mouse. So if your mouse ends up losing connection, definitely make sure to plug in both devices and upgrade the firmware on both of them. You can set up your sleep timer here. In the button mapping section, you can rebind all of your buttons with the following functions. The only button you cannot rebind is the one underneath the mouse, unfortunately. There's also a macro functionality. You can fully customize the lighting of the receiver. You can also turn the light off if it annoys you. You can turn down the brightness. It will automatically flash in red once your mouse is about to run out of battery. You can set it to display the polling rate, and you can fully customize it with all types of effects. You can set up your XY split DPI if you want to. You have DPI profiles, up to 8K polling, 20K FPS static mode, 3 liftoff distances, you have sensor rotation, you have absolutely everything that you'd ever want. The Asuka edition looks pretty nice with a lot of attention to detail, and here's what it looks like from every angle as well. In terms of the unboxing experience, here's everything that you get. Inside of the box, you of course get your mouse, your receiver, and it's all very eco-friendly with this cardboard underneath as well. You get a USB-A to USB-C cable that is actually not insanely stiff, but still rather stiff. And even the inside of the cable is matched to the color of your mouse. You get some grips that are insanely mid and that I would probably not recommend using. You get some spare skates, and they do actually have spacers underneath. You get this sticker that you can put underneath your mouse if you don't like having an open bottom. Like other mice I've tried, the decals are actually fully below the clear coat, so you cannot feel them. And the coating in general is really solid and quite rubbery. Whilst the scroll rubber looks pretty nice, I'm a bit worried of how the grip might hold up over time. And for whatever reason, they went for these black PTFE skates, but I am happy to report that these are not nearly as slow as something like the Super Strike skates. And when I compare them with many of my stock skates, even from the Vaxi mouse for example, these are actually a tad faster. The only real complaint I have so far with this mouse is that with the new TTC V2 optical switches that they're using inside of it, instead of the on-one opticals that they had before, there's now some switch grinding going on when I click the buttons and move them left to right. So I would advise MelGeek here to revisit the material that they're using for the mouse switch plungers. Other than that, it is a super solid mouse and I can absolutely recommend it if you're looking for something that is on the bigger side and similar to the Vaxi XE in terms of the overall shape hump design language, because it has this triangle that almost wants you to grip upon that and get these contact points over here. Getting into the keyboard, this is the real star of the show. Inside of the box, you're presented with all of your items in here to get some cardboard. Then the keyboard is inside of this box. Up here, you get some accessories, and all of the cardboards are nicely branded as well. You get a branded keycap puller that I personally liked for the keycaps, but not so much for removing the switches. You get all of these spare keycaps if you want to change your layout or go over to a Mac OS layout, and some hilarious stickers. And then inside of the keyboard box, you of course get your keyboard packed in this very nice velvet pouch that is insanely soft. And besides that, of course, you also get your cable, which is a pretty short, about 1.2 meter USB-A to USB-C cable that is color matched to the keyboard, but I just wish it were a bit longer. Heck, even the freaking Velcro is branded. And here is what the board itself looks like when it's not plugged in. And whilst I'm definitely not a fan of the keycaps personally, the attention to detail on the case itself is crazy. No matter how you look at this thing, it is incredibly complex. And at first I was asking myself why it's so expensive, but after seeing this case, I definitely know why. It looks absolutely insane from every angle, but as you can see, the USB-C port is quite recessed, so definitely keep that in mind. But yeah, the case itself goes crazy. The keycaps are most likely polycarbonate, and I really don't like the sound or feel of them personally. I would definitely have preferred if these were just really high quality PBT keycaps. They have a dial over here on the right side that is quite tactile and really nice to use. You can also press it for an extra functionality. There's also a button over here that by default condition just opens up the WebDriver. Here's what the keyboard looks like when plugged in. You can fully customize the lighting everywhere with a bunch of options that I'll show you later. You have a side light on the right side and also here on the left side. You of course have the RGB backlight on the board. You have an indicator light up here on the top that by default just shows your caps lock. And there is also this grill on the back that you can fully customize. Here's a closer look at the keycaps that they're using. They are quite thick, but as I've already mentioned, I don't like the sound of this material. And here are their switches that they're using. They're modified TTC Kinga magnetos. They have this hybrid stem that is visible here. The stem wobble is very minimal, and they're also close bottom. In terms of layers, the keyboard is pre-foamed up. There's the PCB, then there's a very thin pour-on film on top. There's also foam between the plate and the PCB, and then they're using an FR4 plate, which if you know anything about me, I'm not a huge fan of in terms of sound and feel for Hall effect keyboards, but I am happy to see that the LEDs are south facing, and here's what it sounds like. I do actually like the sound of the keyboard, but I also think that these keycaps are really holding it back from sounding amazing. And the FR4 plate is not really helping it either. So for some feedback from MelGeek here, I'd say for a future collab, a solid high quality thick PBT keycap will probably be the better choice for both sound and look over time as well, since I can see these caps getting pretty shiny over time. In terms of the functionalities, the WebDriver is very solid. You have your profiles up here that you can also fully manage. You can import them, export them, rename them, but unfortunately you cannot delete any of your profiles. Here are all the key mapping functions. Feel free to pause if you want to see them all. A nice surprise was ISO hashtag and ISO backslash, which is always really nice to see for a Swiss person like me. And here are all the rest of the functionalities. You do have a lot of options. The only thing that I'm seeing fully missing is F13 to F24, which I actually do use quite a lot for binding in different softwares like Discord. Here are all your lighting options. There are a metric ton of them. You can also sync the different lights together with each other so that it looks more cohesive, and here are all the options for the rear and the side. Of course, you can also have a static light that you can fully customize yourself, although there is no color wheel for some reason, only for the actual backlight over here. Here you can change the functionality of the dial and also the button. For the dial, these are your options, and for the button, you can only switch it between either changing profiles or opening the web hub. Inside of the rapid trigger settings, you have all of your options for custom rapid trigger and actuation points. You can set your actuation point between 0.1mm and 3.3mm in 0.1mm steps. You can fully customize the dead zone as well. I personally set my dead zone to 0.01mm, and whilst testing this keyboard, I played it with a 0.3mm actuation point. I have it set to custom actuation. I have rapid trigger enabled, of course. And then for the rapid trigger, I have it set to 0.35mm. And yes, you can change both the press and release distance. There's also custom settings where you have continuous rapid trigger. You can import pro player profiles from Valorant players. There's a crosshair library for whatever reason. I mean, I'm not going to use it, but I guess that's kind of cool. You have all of these switches as an option for changing them if you want them to be calibrated perfectly. And you can also calibrate the keyboard yourself manually, which I can recommend when you first get it in. In the button mapping segment, you can press super key, and here you have all of your other Hall effect functionalities. With the advanced functionality, you can make combo keys where you press one key and it presses several other ones at the same time. You have macros, you have a DKS, which is just dynamic keystroke that you have definitely seen before. You have Rappy Snappy, which is a depth-based input. You have a functionality that they call DRT, or single key reverse stop, which is actually made specifically for counter strafing, and I've never seen this before. And then there's the regular SOCD that you all know and love, unless you play Counter-Strike where it's absolutely banned. And I use this for all of the games that I play because I mainly play Marvel Rivals and Fortnite. And I'm happy to report that the SOCD function is also fully customizable with a neutral option as well, so that you can hold both keys and have them both actuated instead of always having one key preferred over the other. And then of course you can also fully customize your function layer, but I will have to tell you that there's only one singular function layer and you cannot have multiple ones. I have my function layer set so that I can play, pause, previous, next over here with my arrow keys. You can customize all the buttons. There's nothing that is not customizable. I have my ISO backslash over here, which is really nice to use if you normally type on an ISO layout, because you are missing that extra button. And then you have your profiles up here on Q, W, E, and R to hot swap between of your profiles. Overall, the WebDriver is really nice. There's nothing that I see missing except for F13 to F24, and it has been a joy to use. Also in game, I've never had any misinputs. There's nothing I disliked about the keyboard except for it being pretty wide for a 65%. The only thing I don't like about the layout personally are these 6 1U keys next to each other. I really wish it had a blocker. It would just make it a bit more premium. Maybe they could have had 3 buttons up here, the dial on this right side, and then the button on the blocker. It's just that this is obviously quite the expensive premium product, but then again, it's not only an Evangelion collaboration you're buying into, but also an insanely complex CNC case. Which, if you know anything about making keyboards and CNCing aluminum, it does justify the premium price tag category, unlike some other upcoming releases. Also, there's not only this Asuka edition, but also a Centauri 80 Ray edition. Here's what that looks like. It is an 80% that looks sort of similar to the layout of the Wooting 80HE. In terms of the build itself and also the WebDriver, from what I understand, it is the same as this keyboard that I have here with me. And that really is about it for the showcase. If you want to grab any of these products, you can do so with the link down in the description below or by using this QR code on screen. And if you end up buying anything of these Evangelion collab items, definitely make sure to use my code jakeu-eva to save a whopping $20 at checkout. I'd say that if you're a huge fan of Evangelion, this is a pretty nice and functional collab without any proper flaws that is going to hold you back from either fully customizing these products to your liking or playing your absolute best because of some settings simply missing in the WebDriver. But then again, not every product is perfect. I don't personally like these keycaps. The switch grinding on the mouse is an issue with these TTC V2s, and the super recessed USB-C port does make you use their stock cable. Huge thanks to my YouTube members up here supporting the channel. I really appreciate you guys. And also a shout out to all of my subscribers here on Twitch. And if you ever want to catch me live, definitely go check out my stream over at twitch.tv/jakeu-fps. Peace out.